The subphylum Vertebrata of phylum Chordata is in turn divided into two superclasses. Number 1 is Superclass Pisces and number 2 is Superclass Tetrapoda. We will be discussing in this module the Superclass Pisces. Pisces are actually fishes, and these were the first vertebrates to evolve on Earth, and they then gave rise to the other vertebrates which evolved later on from these fishes. So they comprises almost more than half of the vertebrates on Earth. We will be looking at the origin of the fishes. We can see here that during the Cambrian time, the first vertebrate animal or the first backbone animal evolved, and then they moved through the water, and they were jawless and toothless, and they suck up small food particles from the ocean floor like vacuum cleaners. And for 50 million years ago, during the Ordovician time, these fishes were the only vertebrates. And by the end of this period, fish had developed primitive fins to help them swim, and bones which were required for protection. And the first jawed fish appeared in Silurian time. Later, both the cartilaginous and bony fishes appeared. And if we look into the key characteristics of fishes overall, and we look at their habitat, obviously they are water dwelling, but some live in freezing Arctic Sea, others prefer warm freshwater lakes, still others spend some of the time out of their water too. And about their size, they may range in size from such small or tiny fish like chichlets, which are fingernail long, to the large fishes like that of whales and sharks that are 18 meters long. And the key feature of fishes is that the presence of the vertebral column. So all fishes have an internal skeleton with a spine which surrounds the dorsal nerve cord, and it may or may not be made up of bones, and the brain is fully enclosed within the closed box, which is skull or cranium, which may be made up of bones or cartilage. The other key feature of fishes is that they have gills. Basically, fishes are water surviving species, and they must extract oxygen dissolved in the water around them. To do this, they have gills which actually help them to take in oxygen, and the gills are actually composed of fine filaments of tissues that are rich in blood capillaries and vessels. We will see in the coming chapters the whole procedure of intake of oxygen by these gills, which is actually a complex process. And then about the first fishes, which are cyclostoma. They are actually jawless fishes, and they are eel-like, or they are snake-like in appearance, and there are no scales present on them, and their skeleton is made up of cartilaginous structure, and they have a ventral sectoral mouth as their jaws are absent, and there are no paired appendages, or we can see the fins in the modern fishes. They are without any appendages. So we can see here the jawless fish, and the other important characteristics are that their heart is with one auricle, and their digestive system is simple too, which lacks stomach, and their sexes are separate in if we take the example of lampreys, and if we take example of hagfishes, they are hermaphrodite. They have both sexes in a single individual, and about their fertilization, it is external. So now we will see the evolution of jaw which took place in Silurian time, and it was a trend from jawless fishes to actually jawed fishes. So we can see here that water entered their mouth and passed out through number of paired gill openings, and suspending food was strained out of the water. Filter feeders are limited to eating small items of food, and in all fish successive gill openings are separated and supported by skeletal structures called gill arches, shown here, and each arch has a hinge at the angle of V, we can see, and jaws are actually thought to evolve from anterior gill arch, shown here. You can see the evolution of jaw here. As we said earlier, that the jaw evolved from the anterior gill arch. This anterior gill arch actually gave rise to the jaw. Now the rise of the active swimmers, actually at the end of the Devonian, all the pioneer vertebrate disappeared and they were replaced by sharks and bony fish. We can see that the jaw was improved even further, and the major factor which was responsible for the replacement of primitive fish by sharks and bony fish was that they have superior design for swimming. Actually, they had streamlined body and they had evolved the head, which was very efficient for swimming, and in this case there was minimum amount of turbulence by water and they moved very efficiently through the water. And then we will also see that they evolved the fins too, and fins are of various types and they have various functions. Actually, we will see the function of each fin one by one. We can see the number one, there is an efficient tail which is called as the caudal fin. This is actually the caudal fin, and it is responsible for the forward movement, and it is also called as a propulsion fin. इसकी help से fish जो है वो forward move करती है. And then we can see that there are stabilizing fins which are actually the dorsal fin, and then they have the ventral fin. Actually the dorsal fin जो है it prevents the rolling of the fish, कि fish roll ना करे, इसको ये prevent करती है. And about this ventral or anal fin, it provides balance, और ये fin fish को side पे slip होने से रोकती है. So then there are another pair of fins, paired fins, which are called as a pectoral fin and the pelvic fin shown here, and they have a function like that of elevator flaps of an aeroplane. और ये fish को upward या डाउनवर्ड मूव करती है, या फिश अगर अपवर्ड मूवमेंट करना चाहे या डाउनवर्ड मूवमेंट करना चाहे, इसमें these fins are useful actually. Now we will see the some characteristics of these chondrichthyes or cartilaginous fishes, and which are actually jawed fishes, and they comprises of sharks and rays, and their body is as we can see that body is fusiform, and they have a mouth which is ventrally present. And if we see the internal anatomy of a shark, we can see that olfactory sacs are not connected to the mouth cavity as shown here, and they have placoid scales. We will be discussing what are the placoid scales or other scales in the slides coming in few seconds. Actually, placoid scales are teeth-like scales, and it is to be noted here that sharks don't have swim bladder, which is present in other group which is called as osteichthyes. Sharks and rays belong to the group which is called as chondrichthyes. And then we can also note here that they may be oviparous or they may be viviparous, and in the case of chondrichthyes the sexes are separate. And if we see skates and rays, we can see that pectoral fins are present which are very much enlarged, and they are used for swimming. And in the stingray, the tail is long and whip-like, we can see here, and it has got sharp spines which can cause dangerous wounds when they attack their prey. And then in case of electric ray, they have certain organs which are called as electric organs, and they can give severe shocks to the prey, and they can make their prey senseless with the help of these electric organs. And now moving on to the bony fishes, which are osteichthyes. They dominated the water actually, and they evolved at the same time when the sharks were being evolved, and instead of gaining more speed by being light-weighted, they have developed bony structure. Actually, it was advantageous because it provided a base against which the strong muscles could pull. So by the process of ossification, which is the process of bone formation, they develop bones. and they not only have the internal skeleton ossified or bonified, but their external skeleton was also made up of plates and scales. So we can see here that they have terminal mouth, unlike the chondrichthyes. We have seen that they have a ventral mouth, and they have a heart which is more developed than that of chondrichthyes. They have a two-chambered heart, and they respire with the help of gills, and the gills are supported by gill arches, and these gills are actually covered by the operculum. This is the covering of the gill, which is called as operculum. So the most ancient fossils of bony fishes are found in the freshwater lake beds from the middle Devonian, as we have discussed earlier that they originated or they evolved along with the sharks and the rays. So they have some important adaptations or features. For example, they have developed swim bladder. Although these bones are, because they have bones which are heavier than cartilaginous skeletons, they are still buoyant, meaning thereby they can keep afloat, or they can float on the top of a liquid or gas more easily, or they can easily swim through the water. And how they maintain this all? This is because of the swim bladder which is present inside these osteichthyes. Actually, this we can see here the swim bladder is outpocketing of the pharynx. This is actually the swim bladder, and they actually intake or इनके अंदर जो है वो gases fill हो जाती हैं, and gases may be internal or they may be external, and a variety of physiological factors control the exchange of gases between the blood stream and the swim bladder, and that is how they remain buoyant. And now we will discuss various types of dermal scales present in various kind of fishes. We will be seeing that there are some types of scales which are called as placoid. They are spiny, tooth-like projections, and they are present in early fishes like cartilaginous fishes. And then we have gainoid type of scales, and actually these are the modifications of placoid scales, and they are bony and they are covered with strong material or enamel like structure, and which is called as gainoin. They are actually thick scales and they are present in primitive bony fishes. And then we have cycloid type of scales, and they are thin, they may be large, round or oval, and they may be arranged in overlapping pattern. We can see here the overlapping pattern. And then we have a ctenoid type of scales. They are actually similar to cycloid type, except that they have spines or they have comb like teeth along the free edges, we can see here, and they are present in the bony fish. And here we can see the internal anatomy of bony fish, which is osteichthyes. We can see here the presence of stomach, and there is a bony vertebra which is a characteristic of this osteichthyes. And then they have a brain, gills are shown here too, and the heart we have discussed earlier, and they have gonads present here, and there are scales which may be of variable type, and the kidney is also present, and you can see here the presence of swim bladder too. So these were the important characteristics of fishes, and we have also seen the evolution of fishes with time.